Welcome to the Performance Gap. I'm your host, Sami, and in today's episode, we're going to be sitting down with Osteopath Patrick Canfor, discussing all things recovery and the rehabilitation process. Let's jump in. Patrick, walk me through the Performance Gap in everyday rehab.
Yeah, so I guess my spin on that, taking it away from like the performance gap in rehab, let's break it down in terms of what I have seen in my, 6 years into osteo. And I don't think it's a performance gap in rehab in itself. I think the performance gap is in the setup of the care plan for the person. So I think one thing that I've adopted is actually by a course that I did by a guy called Dave O'Sullivan, who's like an English rugby union physio. And he said that the way that the treatment plan is provided for the person is going to set them up for the entirety of their entire time with you. And it's going to help with the way that people don't know what they don't know, essentially. And you're there to be able to provide them with the change that they need to make and guide them through their way, right? So what I like to do is I like to provide an entire plan for the person in their first session coming in with me. I like to go through an injury history, and I like to map out their injuries and make links towards what their compensations are and how they've gotten necessarily from where they were maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago to where they are now in their symptomatic stage, but then also provide them a roadmap getting out of that. Yeah, so that's my sort of take on it. And what I've done, I actually had a client this morning and I brought that I did a bit of a mock-up in terms of their treatment plan, and I've got it right here in front of me.
Awesome.
So you can kind of see all the people that are on the podcast. Obviously, you might have to tune into the YouTube video or wherever you're providing this with visual context. But as you can see here, up against the screen, I've got like a roadmap of how they came from where they were all the way down to where they are now, and then a map coming from where they are into where they're going to be.
Right. I hear you. Yeah. I guess for you in particular, given your background, you have two different almost avatars, so to speak. You've worked with some athletes in more kind of a professional setup, and then you work with kind of your gen pop, so to speak. And for that kind of dichotomy, what are some of the differences? You mentioned how it's the care and the how you introduce the whole idea of making change. How does that differ?
Yeah, so you can't give an athlete the same plan as what you're going to give general pop, because I think the athlete is ready to make change and they have something that they're aiming towards getting to, whether that's returning to the field, whether that's training for a marathon, whether that's training for just a 5 or 10 kilometer, or if they're a CrossFit athlete and they want to be able to do an overhead press or a clean jerk. So they know what their end goal is. Whereas general population, they don't really know what their end goal. To them, their end goal is getting out of pain, right? And as a therapist, and as you would also know in your background, that you know that getting out of pain isn't necessarily the map of where you need to end to, because we know that injuries and whatnot are going to create compensations, and those compensations they're not necessarily going to come into light and provide an injury in themselves until you pass a threshold of what that patient can output, essentially. Right. So I guess it's about providing the individualized treatment plan for the person that's in front of you, rather than trying to create a framework for everyone and encompassing everything in that.
Yeah, I see. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of the time, and I definitely think in my background as a strength and conditioning coach, it can be few and far between from person to person. You get the typical strength coaches that are there just for the in-gym program, and that's the focus. It is improving KPIs. There's not as much holistic approach as some other S&C coaches that are more global in their assessment, and they build from that. I guess for you, Patrick, in your experience, what's some of the key things that you like to do when you initially meet someone, and as just an understanding, not theoretical, but from a human point of view, how are you trying to build that rapport from the get-go?
Just listen to them. Like, the patient's going to tell you what's going on if you just let them let them talk, right? Like you get into a situation with they've seen so many different therapists over time, and the therapist is almost trying to steer the conversation into certain different ways. Whereas if you just listen to the patient and what they're coming in with, they'll tell you what's going on and where they want to be and how they want to get back to it. And you just need to provide a framework from there, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's so simple yet so overlooked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And on that in particular, I guess that's probably more so from a general population point of view. Obviously, when you move into the what I like to call everyday athlete, where there's a specific goal in mind, and don't get me wrong, you still want to listen to them, or the actual athlete, professional athlete, where the goal at this point in time is performance based, getting back playing or return to play. For you, how do you, for Gen Pop in particular, how does that process go from when they come in and have a conversation? What are the key things you're looking for to see what you can start to build upon?
Well, you're talking about KPIs earlier, right? With the general population, you need to still provide them KPIs and still give them the same essential treatment plan as what you would give an elite athlete, but you're not necessarily going to give it to them in the same way. You're going to give it to them in a way that they're going to be able to create small wins quickly, so that they're going to create buy-in and they're going to be able to implement it into ways that they haven't time for, right? Like they've got kids, they've got families, they've got full-time jobs where they can't commit 30, 45 minutes of rehab in per a day. They've got to be able to implement it into 2 minutes in the morning when they're brushing their teeth, or they've got to do it when 30 seconds when the kettle's boiling. And being able to provide the rehab in that section there where it's just implemented into your daily life, that's where you get good change for the general population and good buy-in as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I spoke a little bit earlier on my Instagram about just that integer change and how it doesn't matter what it is as long as there's a direction. And I think that kind of alludes to what you're saying with general pop. They may not have an awareness of what they need to be doing or should be doing. And it's not just an awareness. They don't have a capacity at this point in time to actually implement the rehab that they need to. And we want to remove that textbook. And I don't know about yourself, but coming out of university, I was so textbook driven. So, well, this is the only way. It's a square peg in a round hole. Like, if you don't do this way, you're not going to get results. And we don't live in a utopian world. I guess it'd be keen to understand a little bit more about how you actualize that. You know, you said about like standing up, like when you're brushing your teeth or like when the kettle's boiling. How do you build out that plan for someone if they're not really willing to actually put in some proper resiliency work or robust rehab work, but they don't have the time, or they don't think they have the time?
I think that's where you, like when a patient comes to you, when a patient comes to me and they're in pain, that's your period where you can make real good change really quick, because they have that stimulus they don't want to be in pain. So then they've actually got that stimulus reminding them each and every day that there's something going on with their body, so they've got to make the time. Yeah. So I think that's the important key factor in terms of being able to create buy-in right there and right then, is providing them exercises there, because 90% of the time people are going to come in and they're going to do their rehab then because they don't want to be in pain, right? But then once you get them out of pain and you know that you need to be able to still provide them rehab, then that's where getting real quick wins at the start is going to be able to facilitate that change in the future.
Right, okay. And on that then in particular, when you say facilitate the quick wins, is that obviously pain being one of them, but I guess it's buying as well, like the trust and authority with yourself?
So that's what I do in my this thing here, right, where we were talking about before. So for instance, this client came in, and I'll read it to you because it's too hard to see without because it's quite small, right? But I'll give you a quick bit of a rundown. So this patient came in with a case history of, they had a right ankle sprain in 2020. That was pretty nasty, a grade 2. They got better in a few weeks or like a few months. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, on the same side, they did a hamstring injury. Then they did something to their right knee, and then it came with a stressful period at work a few months ago. And then all of a sudden, their back went, right? So in being able to create the small wins for that person, like our first win was, let's just be able to touch your toes, right? So they will be able to touch their toes by the next time I see them, or in the next couple of days, hopefully, if I've done my job and I've found out what's going on and I can desensitize the area and I can get them to actually allow their iliocostalis to be able to lengthen and be able to depress their diaphragm and their rib cage, and then being able to load through their hips and whatnot. Then the next thing is being able to hang out the washing. Yeah, so they should be able to do that hopefully by week 1 as well. And then we slowly get further and further in. So if they can tick off those first couple of wins pretty easy, then that's where you get that big change and that big buy-in in.
Right, I see. And I guess I like how you've used almost a KPI in that instance of being able to hang up the washing. Is that something that you find that's actually, obviously, for me, that's quite, not foreign, but like I would never use something as subjective as that, just as a point, but it makes sense given what you said before as a precursor. Is that, as you've developed over the last, say, couple years now in your own sort of clinic outside of where you work, have you built that repertoire and that kind of ability to be a bit more malleable to the prescription you provide?
Yeah, so this is a plan from this morning. So each plan would be completely different based on what they want to do. So for instance, this person wanted to be able to deadlift. Right, so we know that they need to be able to touch the floor to be able to deadlift. They need to be able to do certain things. But if someone came in and they needed to be a runner, then we might think that their first goal is being able to walk 5-6 minutes compared to their second one being able to bound compared to this and compared to that. But I guess the difference in saying between, you were saying before, like you've never thought about how that you'd introduce that into your care plans, right? Is that you probably wouldn't see people in the super acute phase of their care plan. They would be seeing you when they're at maybe their deadlift phase or their split stance deadlift phase, where they can take some load through the tissues, and then you're keeping them out of regressing. Whereas I'm getting them from their first position where they can barely even walk to my clinic, to being able to get them to walking and being able to get them to deadlifts, and I can send them to you so that you can then keep them out of that position.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that element, especially with Gen Pop, you're fighting a different battle in terms of you're trying to solve a different problem. And to a degree, I think there is some similarity. Like the way you talk about that is the way I instill habits. And so with what I do, it's not just about in the gym, it's about can we start really building healthy long-term habits that are lifelong, and talking about kind of keeping hydration up, talking about sleep and getting good quality, not just quantity of sleep. And what typically I find is you can get individuals that they'll be growth minded towards something. So they'll lean into discomfort. They'll lean into trying to actually cognitively build a plan to achieve a certain outcome. Whereas in other cases, for example, sleep's a massive one. If someone's got kind of opposing history to lack of sleep, struggling with kind of boundaries at nighttime, being on their phone, being in an environment where it's not kind of beneficial to sleep in terms of they've got young kids or they've got extra responsibilities, then sleep's always going to be put as it's bottom priority. And it's just how can you instigate, but also how you can reframe that understanding to, okay, right, sleep's important, but why is it important? What is it going to do? Instead of saying, oh, it's just important because literature tells me so. It's like, well, if you've got more energy, you can go and play with your kids. That 5 o'clock time in the evening when kids come home from school, you actually have a bit more energy to play or kind of be with them and be present. And that's the big one. And I guess that's literally the same sort of manner you try and flip the script. Like if someone can't walk without pain, or they need to start doing things and building back into normal routine, the end goal is for quality of life, I take it.
Yeah, of course. And I think it encompasses everything, right? Like you can't expect to be happy, healthy, mobile and moving and everything without hitting the pillars of getting good sleep, having good nutrition, keeping your water up, keeping your incidental activity up. You can't expect to be able to eat junk food on every night, be able to get 4 hours of sleep, be stressed out of your brain, and then be able to have a healthy, happy lower back or shoulder, because it's going to creep up somewhere in that presentation. I mean, look, there are some people that manage to be able to pass that, but the 90% of the population are going to be in a position where if they don't get those core foundations of just body's function, it's your body's going to tell you about it.
Yeah. It's something we'll break sooner. I always use the analogy of a garden deck chair with my principles of performance. If one of those principles or pillars, so to speak, is a bit wobbly and not too stable, then the whole deck chair is going to topple over at some point, sooner rather than later, most likely. It'd be interesting to know, because I'm moving into the more theoretical side of things, of just like rapport and habit building. For you, with people that come to you that really just generally struggle with kind of aptitude towards training, the reason why I come on about this is because I literally saw something this morning from quite a big influencer saying, like, exercise is a non-negotiable, and we both agree, like, exercise should be part of a lifestyle 100%, but telling someone that's never done any exercise to increase their steps by 4,000, to start doing some reminiscence of a plan at home in their own spare time, it isn't going to go down well. So what are the steps for you to try and really encourage and curate, and everyone's obviously different, that sort of awareness to actually this is what you need to start doing in your downtime, trying to build these active, healthy lifestyle, trying to increase activity?
Yeah, well, exercise doesn't have to be sitting in the gym for 60 minutes 3 or 4 times a week pumping weights.
Sure about that? No, hang on a minute. You can't say that. I'm out of a job.
But exercise for everyone's different, right? Like, exercise can be, for the idea of an exercise to an ultra marathon runner is going to be completely different to a single mum of 3 kids, right? Like, you're not going to expect, I mean, there probably is some single mums of 3 kids that are ultra marathon runners, and that's awesome. But the majority of people who have a busy lifestyle and have a lot of other commitments, they're not going to have the time to be able to put that time into going to the gym or running or this or that. They need to be able to find exercise that works for them. And it might be that it's taking the kids and your dog for a walk, and that's your form of exercise. And then once you get a healthy foundation of that, then you can then potentially get the courage and the motivation to then take next exercise to the next level for you, which might be doing some stop-start runs or interval runs, or might be getting a couple dumbbells for home and doing a 20-minute workout 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be, everyone's idea of exercise doesn't have to be someone else's idea or the stock standard foundations of what people think exercise is.
Yeah, I agree. And I put my hand up at times because I think we may have spoken about it. Pilates as an idea, look, great to get active, great for getting someone kind of into some sort of routine. But in terms of strength development, there's not a lot of benefit longer term. And I won't go into the reasons why in terms of adaptation, but I think we're very quick to drop hot takes online. And I've been of it myself. And I think we've spoken at length about what I do, and the people that I work with are already bought into the process. So there is a level of almost nurturing to a degree of, if you are going to achieve or you're trying to build into something, there's an understanding already given. For example, we have the run club. So just for those that don't know, I have a run club down in Mordialloc, and that's where I met Patrick. And I always talk about, everyone knows they need to be fit. They need to be fit. They need to start running. They need to have some type of training in their lifestyle. Everyone knows they don't need to be told that. But the growth of the run club is directly correlated to the community that's been building. And there's a pull factor as well as a push factor. And I think if we can spend more time working on how we can reframe an individual to actually adhere to whatever we prescribe, the better adherence is. And they actually enjoy it.
Goes backpedal a little bit. Pilates might not be the best form of exercise in the world, but to a person who hasn't been to the gym and doesn't enjoy going to a gym with big, hairy, sweaty men, who doesn't really know what to do with dumbbells and doesn't have that framework in themselves, Pilates might be the best thing for that person at that time.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. And I think there is nuance to that. And like, if someone was to outright ask me and be like, is Pilates good for strength training? No. But is it good to get someone into a routine and build up? 100%.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to be careful with, as much as we want to be correct and we want to be right, there's nuance to everything. And everyone's an individual person where they're trying to achieve a certain outcome, and what may take you a couple of weeks would take me 2 months. As long as I'm getting it done and it's actually a net positive for my life, in my eyes, I think that's a positive. And then obviously, unless there is a given time span that we want to achieve something in.
Yeah, like not everything's a randomized control trial or a study that can provide the same adaptations for each and every single person, because every single person is an individual, and you need to provide a treatment plan and a plan of care for that individual to get good results for them, rather than getting good results for what you think is good for them.
That was literally my mindset 5 years ago coming out of university. Everything, you got to follow the textbook, you got to follow what's been written. We got to be, it's almost the level of optimization and trying to kind of improve everything and make it the fastest development of which I think nowadays is a default of what we have in delayed gratification, and everything wants things now, quick. The TikTokification, that is a word, but wasn't around much longer than 5 years ago. But yeah, really good stuff. I guess moving on, what I'm really intrigued to know for you, given what we spoke about, is what are some of the things that practitioners in kind of being background as an osteo, and then obviously myself as a strength and conditioning, what can we do to help bridge that gap? Like, what things that we can really do that's simple to help everyday fitness enthusiasts and Gen Pop build and instill these habits?
Yeah, I think it's just just to clarify, you're talking about people who are fitness influencers or people who are PTs and how they can then influence Gen Pop and people that they come to them. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, people like us. Like, if I was an upcoming coach, an osteo or S&C, and I'm basically saying this was me 5 years ago, and I was so textbook heavy, and I was like, right, theory. What can I start doing in my own practice? And it'd be good for people listening to actually look for green flags in physios, osteos, allied health professionals when they come to them, what they're doing to help them bridge that gap.
Yeah, so it's look for a treatment plan that is individualized to the person. So and like what we were touching on before, just think about the person in front of you is their own person. So each treatment plan can't be the same from one person to another. Someone can come in with symptoms, or someone can come in with a goal, and it might be the exact same goal as the next person that you see, but the plan to get them to that goal, or the plan to get them out of that symptom, can't be the exact same thing as what the next person is, because everyone's different and everyone's lives are different. So I think it's listen to the person in front of you and don't enforce your beliefs on them.
Right. Yeah.
And when I say don't enforce your beliefs on them, it's don't enforce your beliefs of what your idea of fitness or your idea of what health looks like on them. It's because for you, a good deadlift might be 200 kilos, but to the person that you have in front of you, a good deadlift might be 60 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not deadlifting 200 kilos, sorry, my dog's got a squeaker and is squeaking the hell out of that thing beside me.
Yeah, they're not going crazy. There is like...
It's looking at that every person is an individual, and it's being able to provide a treatment plan for them. And like, I think that I always got into trouble at the start of my career because my idea of fitness was going for 10, 15 kilometer runs, doing a marathon, training 4 to 5 times a week and lifting heavy. Whereas the person in front of me, that wasn't for them. It was they went for 3 walks that week, or they stuck to their rehab plan for that week, or they signed up for a gym membership. They haven't actually been yet, but that was a huge tick in their box. So it's just keeping it. It's encouraging the little wins and encouraging the small changes that a person makes to get to the end goal.
Yeah, I think that's really important. As we said, like it's something where I think on today's social media, you can very quickly get swept up with, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not moving fast enough. And look, don't get me wrong, as we've discussed, there are things you can improve to increase the speed of development 100%, but it shouldn't be detrimental to where you are currently. And for some people, capacity is individualized. Some people can take more on than others, and that cognitive load, so to speak, can be greater. Awesome stuff. Look, before we finish off, I have bit of a tradition on the pod. And so essentially what I'm interested in is a takeaway message. Now, for you, I can see you holding your breath. I'm not going to put you on the spot. So for me, if someone's listening they've just had an injury, or they found out that they need to start kind of building into a routine and they haven't had much in the past, what would be kind of the number one thing in a condensed fashion, number one top take home that will start moving the needle the most for them? I think we've kind of half answered it anyway, but it'd be good to get a summary from you.
Yeah, just start and stick to it. I think so many people start with something, but then don't fulfill doing it. They chop and change and say that didn't work for me, that I tried this and it didn't work. I tried osteo and it didn't work. I tried physio and it didn't work. The treatment plan is generally longer than what the patient thinks it's going to be. And they expect to get super quick results fast. And it's understanding that the physio, the osteo, the chiro, the myo, whatever you're seeing, is trying to figure out trying to figure out what's going on in front of you. So every session, they're trying to understand your body and trying to create a plan to be able to create change for you. And they might not have the answers straight away, but it's sticking with that person and sticking with the treatment plan will get you to the end result as you continue on with it.
Awesome stuff. And before we go just on that, how can someone implement something like that? Or what is something that they can do from tomorrow, like practically, that you've done with maybe your clients that they can take with?
Yeah. Understanding where you've come from to get to where you are now. So I think it's looking at you've got symptoms now. It's understanding how those symptoms have come about. So it's linking back your previous injuries and understanding that maybe this lower back pain that you just got from this morning isn't necessarily just the lower back pain that you've just gotten today. It's something that's been brewing for a while in the body. You just haven't hit the threshold. So it's understanding what that is and then being able to get yourself out of that.
Awesome stuff. Before we go, Patrick, where can people find you?
So I just started my business about a year ago. It's called Core Movement, Core and then MVMT for movement. It's in Aspendale Gardens. It is fully equipped clinic. It is a home clinic. I do work from a garage and a studio in the back, but we've got a fully equipped gym in there. And you can find me on www.coremovement.com.au. Awesome
stuff. And I'll drop in your Instagram handle as well. Patrick, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks to Patrick for jumping on and joining us on today's episode. And if you want to contact Patrick, head to the show notes and reach him on socials or on his website. And if you're looking for performance development, getting you stronger, fitter, faster in a matter of months, then be sure to head to my website and book in a free strategy call with me, either at www.samihusainsc.com, or alternatively, you can reach out on Instagram and we can have a discussion about making your performance goals a reality in 2026. I'll see you in the next one.